Welcome back to the Sleepy Mind channel. Tonight, we explore the forest, following the slow development of trees, soil, and living networks as they interact over long periods of time and shape the land in steady, observable ways. If you find these long, calm science documentaries useful, you can like the video and subscribe for more. If you choose to leave a comment about where you are listening from, it is always interesting to see how far these stories travel. Let us begin. The forest you are moving through is part of one of the oldest living systems on Earth. Trees first appeared more than 300 million years ago, during a time when plants were beginning to transform the atmosphere by releasing oxygen and storing carbon. Over immense spans of time, forests expanded and adapted, forming across continents under very different conditions of temperature, rainfall, and soil. The presence of trees changed the chemistry of the air, stabilized the ground beneath them, and created habitats that allowed complex life to develop. Today, forests cover about 31% of the land surface of the planet. This includes dense tropical rainforests near the equator, vast boreal forests stretching across Canada and Siberia, and temperate forests found throughout Europe, Asia, and parts of North America. Some forests remain continuous over thousands of kilometers, while others exist as smaller fragments shaped by human activity. Regardless of size, each forest continues to perform essential functions that extend far beyond its boundaries. As you move among the trees, you are inside a system that regulates air, water, and temperature. Through photosynthesis, leaves absorb carbon dioxide and use sunlight to produce energy, storing carbon in wood, roots, and soil. Over decades or centuries, a single mature oak or beech tree can store several tons of carbon. At a global scale, forests act as a vast carbon reservoir, slowing the rise of atmospheric carbon dioxide and reducing the rate of warming. Water behaves differently in forested land than it does in open fields or urban areas. Rain falling onto leaves is intercepted by the canopy, slowing its descent and reducing the force with which it reaches the ground. This limits soil erosion and allows water to soak gradually into the earth. Tree roots create channels that guide water downward, replenishing groundwater and feeding streams. Through transpiration, trees release water vapor back into the air, influencing humidity and rainfall patterns across wide regions. The forest is structured in layers, similar to a multi-level building designed for light and airflow. The canopy is formed by tall species such as oak, beech, pine, and spruce, capturing most of the available sunlight. Beneath it lies the understory, where young trees, hazel and holly grow in filtered light. The forest floor supports mosses, fungi, insects, and seedlings, where fallen leaves and wood are broken down and nutrients are recycled back into the soil. As you move forward, individual details become clearer. The bark of an oak is thick and deeply ridged, offering protection against insects and fire. Birch bark is pale and papery, reflecting light and resisting moisture. Pine needles are narrow and waxy, reducing water loss in colder or drier environments. Each tree species carries physical traits shaped by the conditions it evolved to survive. Birdsong appears intermittently rather than continuously. A robin produces short, clear phrases from a low branch, while a blackbird sings with longer, fluid notes from higher in the canopy. A woodpecker taps rhythmically against a trunk, searching for beetle larvae beneath the bark. These sounds mark territory, attract mates, and reveal the presence of insects hidden from view. Movement at ground level is more subtle. Beetles and ants navigate through leaf litter, breaking down organic material and transporting nutrients. Earthworms draw fallen leaves into the soil, improving its structure and increasing its ability to hold water. Small mammals, such as voles and mice, create networks of tunnels, shaping the distribution of seeds and fungi as they move. Beneath the surface, a complex network of fungi connects the roots of trees. These fungal threads, known as mycelium, extend through the soil and attach to roots, increasing the area through which trees can absorb water and minerals. In return, trees supply the fungi with sugars produced through photosynthesis. This network functions like a transport system, moving nutrients between plants and helping stabilize the forest during periods of stress. As you continue deeper, light becomes more variable, shifting with the movement of leaves overhead. The temperature remains cooler than in open land, moderated by shade and moisture. Wind slows as it passes through trunks and branches, reducing evaporation and protecting the soil. These physical conditions create a stable environment where long-lived organisms can persist. The forest around you is not static. Trees grow, age, and eventually fall, opening gaps that allow new growth to begin. Species composition shifts over time in response to climate, disturbance, and competition. What you are experiencing is a living system operating continuously, shaped by biology, physics, and time. This is where the journey continues, deeper into the forest, observing how structure, life, and process combine to sustain one of the most important systems on the planet. As you move further into the forest, the overall shape of the space becomes easier to recognize. A forest is not defined only by trees, but by the way those trees organize light, water, and living space. Ecologists describe a forest as an ecosystem dominated by woody plants tall enough to form a closed canopy. That canopy changes everything beneath it, from temperature to soil chemistry to the kinds of organisms that can survive there. The trees around you are spaced neither evenly nor randomly. Their positions reflect decades or centuries of competition for light and nutrients. Taller individuals have reached the canopy, intercepting most of the sunlight, while shorter trees persist in partial shade. This uneven structure creates variation in brightness, with some areas receiving brief shafts of direct light, while others remain dim for most of the day. Looking upward, branches overlap like interlocking beams. Leaves absorb and scatter sunlight, allowing only a fraction to pass through. In a temperate forest, roughly 1 to 5% of incoming sunlight reaches the ground. This limited light determines which plants can grow below. Shade-tolerant species such as ferns, ivy, and young beech seedlings survive where light is scarce, while sun-loving plants appear only in clearings or along edges. The vertical structure of the forest functions much like a layered filter. The canopy captures light and buffers wind. Below it, the understory slows air movement further and traps moisture. Near the ground, the forest floor remains cooler and more humid than open land nearby. These layers create stable conditions that reduce temperature extremes and protect delicate organisms from rapid change. Tree trunks act as the supporting framework of this system. Their height and diameter reflect both species and age. Oak and beech invest heavily in dense wood, growing slowly but living for centuries. Birch and poplar grow faster, with lighter wood and shorter lifespans. This mix of strategies allows forests to respond to disturbance with fast-growing species colonizing open space and slower species establishing long-term dominance. The spacing between trunks shapes how animals move. Larger mammals such as deer follow paths of least resistance, often along gentle slopes or old fallen logs. Smaller animals navigate through shrubs and roots, using cover to avoid predators. Birds move vertically, shifting between ground, understory, and canopy, depending on feeding and nesting needs. The ground beneath your feet tells its own story. Leaf litter forms a soft layer composed of partially decomposed leaves, twigs, and bark. This layer insulates the soil, retaining moisture and protecting microorganisms from temperature swings. Beneath it lies mineral soil mixed with organic matter, enriched by decades of fallen material broken down by fungi and bacteria. This structure is not accidental. It is the result of physical laws acting over long periods. Gravity pulls leaves downward. Rain moves nutrients through soil. Sunlight drives growth upward. Together, these forces shape the forest into a three-dimensional system that captures energy, stores resources, and supports an extraordinary diversity of life. As you continue moving through this space, you are not passing through empty ground between trees. You are traveling through a carefully organized environment where every layer contributes to the stability of the whole. The forest exists not as a collection of parts, but as a structure built by time, biology, and constant interaction with the physical world. As you move beneath the canopy, light becomes something that arrives indirectly. Sunlight reaches the forest not as a single beam, but as fragments scattered by leaves, needles, and branches. Each layer absorbs part of the energy, leaving only a small portion to travel downward. This filtered light shapes the entire lower forest, determining how plants grow and how animals behave. Leaves are designed to capture light efficiently. Broad leaves, such as those of oak and beech, present a wide surface area that absorbs sunlight during the growing season. Needles, found on pine and spruce, are narrower and coated with a waxy layer, allowing them to function year-round without losing excessive water. These differences influence how much light passes through the canopy and how it is distributed below. As clouds move overhead or branches sway in the wind, the pattern of light on the ground shifts continuously. Bright patches appear briefly, then fade. These moving spots of light are known as sunflecks, and they provide an important source of energy for plants growing beneath the canopy. In some forests, sunflecks account for most of the usable light reaching the forest floor. Plants in shaded conditions grow differently from those in open areas. Ferns spread their fronds horizontally to capture as much light as possible. Young beech seedlings invest energy in leaves rather than height, waiting for a gap to open above them. Mosses rely on moisture more than light, forming dense mats on logs and rocks where competition is low. Light also affects temperature. Areas exposed to direct sunlight warm quickly, while shaded ground remains cooler and more stable. This variation creates small zones with different conditions, allowing multiple species to exist close together. Insects may concentrate in warmer patches during cooler hours, while amphibians remain in shaded, damp areas to prevent water loss. Birds use light levels to time their activity. Songbirds such as robins and blackbirds are most vocal during early morning and late afternoon, when light levels are changing. Predators like sparrowhawks rely on contrast between light and shadow to locate prey moving below. Even subtle changes in brightness can influence where animals choose to feed or rest. Over time, The forest itself responds to light availability. Trees that receive more light grow faster, producing wider growth rings visible when trunks are cut. Those in deep shade grow slowly, conserving resources until conditions change. When a large tree falls, light floods the gap, triggering rapid growth from plants that have waited years for that moment. What you are experiencing is a continuous negotiation between light and life. Energy enters the forest from above, is captured by leaves, and moves downward through food webs and soil. Every movement of light alters behavior, growth, and survival. As you continue forward, these shifting patterns quietly guide the structure and rhythm of the forest around you. As you look upward again, the canopy forms a continuous surface above you, though it is made from thousands of individual crowns. Each tree extends its branches outward until it meets the space claimed by its neighbors. This creates a mosaic rather than a single sheet, with small openings that allow light, rain, and wind to pass through unevenly. In a temperate forest, the canopy is often dominated by oak, beech, and maple, with conifers such as pine or spruce mixed in depending on location. These species differ in height, leaf shape, and seasonal behavior. Deciduous trees shed their leaves in autumn, allowing more light to reach the ground in winter, while evergreen conifers maintain a year-round presence that continues to intercept snow and wind. The height of the canopy influences conditions below. Taller trees increase the distance between leaves and ground, allowing air to circulate and moisture to linger. This reduces temperature extremes and slows evaporation. In summer, the shaded interior of the forest can be several degrees cooler than nearby open land. In winter, the canopy reduces heat loss from the ground by limiting exposure to wind. Branches in the canopy support a wide range of life. Birds, such as great tits and blue tits, forage along twigs and leaves, searching for caterpillars and spiders. Squirrels move along branches with speed and precision, collecting seeds and storing them for later use. Insects feed on leaves, bark, and sap, forming the base of food chains that extend throughout the forest. The canopy also acts as a physical barrier. Rain striking leaves loses much of its force before reaching the ground. Snow accumulates on branches, sometimes remaining there long after surrounding areas have cleared. This delayed release of water spreads moisture over time, reducing flooding and supporting steady soil conditions. Competition within the canopy is intense. Trees compete primarily for light, growing upward and outward to secure exposure. This competition shapes their form. Trees growing in open areas develop wide crowns, while those in dense forests grow tall and narrow. The shape of each crown reflects the space available to it over decades of growth. When a canopy tree dies or falls, the effect is immediate. Light penetrates to the forest floor, temperatures rise slightly, and wind movement increases. This change triggers a response from plants and animals adapted to brighter conditions. Seedlings grow rapidly, insects increase in number, and birds adjust their feeding patterns. The canopy is therefore both a stabilizing force and a source of change. As you continue beneath it, the canopy remains mostly out of reach, yet it defines much of what you experience. It controls light, moderates climate, and supports life above your line of sight. The forest below exists in constant response to what happens in this elevated layer, shaped by leaves and branches far overhead. As you move forward, attention shifts from what is overhead to what stands at eye level. The trunks around you form the visible framework of the forest, supporting everything above while anchoring deeply into the soil below. Each trunk represents decades or centuries of growth, recorded internally as rings that reflect changing conditions year by year. Oak trunks are thick and deeply fissured, their bark broken into plates that provide shelter for insects and spiders. Beech trunks are smoother and pale grey, reflecting light and resisting colonization by mosses and lichens until later in life. Pine trunks are often straight and tall, with bark that flakes into rough segments, adapted to withstand cold and fire. These differences are not cosmetic. They influence which organisms can live on and within each tree. The spacing between trunks determines how the forest feels as you move through it. In some areas, trees grow close together, creating narrow passages that limit movement and visibility. In others, wider gaps open up where light reaches lower branches and shrubs become more abundant. These patterns reflect past events such as storms, disease, or human activity, even when no obvious trace remains. Trunks also function as vertical pathways. Insects move up and down bark surfaces in search of food or mates. Birds use trunks as feeding sites, with species such as nuthatches and tree creepers spiraling along bark, extracting insects hidden in crevices. Woodpeckers excavate cavities that later become nesting sites for owls, bats, and other birds, extending the usefulness of a single tree long after the original builder has moved on. Between the trunks lies a space that is neither empty nor uniform. Shrubs such as hazel and elder occupy areas where light is sufficient, producing nuts and berries that support birds and mammals. Fallen branches rest at different angles, slowing movement and creating shelter. These obstacles influence how animals travel, shaping habitual paths that are reused over time. Air movement changes at this level. Wind that moves freely above the canopy slows as it encounters trunks and undergrowth. This reduction in airflow helps maintain humidity and limits rapid temperature change. The stillness you notice is not the absence of wind, but the result of countless physical barriers redirecting and absorbing its energy. Trunks also play a role in moving water. Rain running down bark is guided toward the base of the tree, concentrating moisture near roots. This process, known as stem flow, delivers water and dissolved nutrients directly into the soil where trees can access them. Over long periods, this influences soil composition and root distribution. As you continue walking, the forest reveals itself as a network of supports and spaces. The trunks provide strength and continuity, while the gaps between them allow movement, growth, and change. Together, they shape how light, air, water, and life move through the forest, creating the environment you are now moving steadily through. As you look downward, the forest floor becomes the most immediate part of the system, close enough to observe in detail. It is covered by a layer of fallen leaves, needles, small branches, and fragments of bark, known as leaf litter. This layer forms a protective blanket that insulates the soil, reduces water loss, and buffers temperature changes between day and night. Leaves on the ground break down at different rates depending on their structure. Beech and maple leaves decompose relatively quickly, returning nutrients to the soil within a few years. Oak leaves contain higher levels of tannins, slowing decomposition and creating a more acidic environment. Pine needles break down slowly and tend to accumulate, influencing which plants and fungi can survive beneath coniferous trees. Within this layer, activity is constant, though mostly hidden. Beetles, woodlice, millipedes, and springtails feed on decaying plant material, fragmenting it into smaller pieces. Earthworms pull leaves into the soil, mixing organic matter with mineral particles. This process improves soil structure, increasing its ability to retain water and support root growth. Fungi play a central role here. Their thread-like filaments extend through leaf litter and soil, releasing enzymes that break down complex materials such as lignin and cellulose. Without fungi, dead wood and leaves would accumulate, locking nutrients away from living plants. Instead, nutrients are gradually released and reused, supporting new growth year after year. Mosses and liverworts occupy damp, shaded patches on soil, rocks, and fallen logs. They do not have roots in the same way as larger plants, relying instead on surface moisture. These small plants help retain water and provide habitat for microscopic organisms, contributing to the overall stability of the forest floor. Seeds that reach the ground face immediate challenges. Light is limited, competition is intense, and many seeds are eaten by rodents or insects. Those that do germinate often remain small for years, surviving on minimal energy while waiting for a change above them. When a tree falls and light increases, these suppressed seedlings can respond rapidly, growing upward to claim the newly available space. Temperature near the forest floor remains relatively stable. During summer, shade and evaporation keep the ground cool. In winter, leaf litter and snow insulate the soil, protecting roots and microorganisms from freezing conditions. This stability allows biological processes to continue even when conditions above ground become harsh. As you move across this surface, every step passes over layers built slowly by time. What appears quiet and still is, in reality, one of the most active parts of the forest. The floor beneath you supports the entire structure above, recycling matter, regulating water, and sustaining the roots of the trees that define the forest around you. As you move forward, attention shifts beneath the surface to what cannot be seen directly, but determines much of what happens above. Tree roots extend outward and downward from each trunk, occupying a volume of soil that often matches or exceeds the spread of the branches above ground. In most temperate forests, the majority of fine roots are found within the top 30 centimeters of soil, where oxygen, water, and nutrients are most available. Roots serve several functions at once. Larger structural roots anchor trees against wind and gravity, spreading laterally rather than growing deep. Fine roots, thinner than a millimeter, are responsible for most nutrient and water uptake. These fine roots are short-lived, often surviving only weeks or months, but they are constantly replaced, creating a dynamic interface between tree and soil. Nutrients in forest soil are not evenly distributed. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and magnesium are released gradually as organic matter decomposes. Roots grow toward these nutrient-rich zones, responding to chemical gradients in the soil. This behavior allows trees to concentrate growth where resources are highest, rather than expanding uniformly in all directions. Water uptake follows similar principles. After rainfall, water fills pore spaces in the soil, held in place by capillary forces. Roots absorb this water through specialized tissues, moving it upward through the xylem to leaves where it is used in photosynthesis and transpiration. During dry periods, trees reduce water loss by closing small openings in their leaves, slowing the movement of water from soil to air. Roots also influence the soil itself. As they grow, they exert pressure that breaks up compacted layers, increasing soil porosity. When roots die, they leave behind channels that allow air and water to penetrate deeper layers. These pathways are reused by new roots and soil organisms, gradually improving drainage and oxygen availability. Chemical interactions occur continuously around roots. Trees release sugars, amino acids, and organic acids into the surrounding soil, a process known as root exudation. These compounds feed bacteria and fungi, increasing microbial activity near roots. In return, microbes convert nutrients into forms that plants can absorb, accelerating nutrient cycling. Different tree species interact with soil in different ways. Beech and oak tend to associate with fungal communities that thrive in moderately acidic soils. Pine and spruce often create more acidic conditions through needle litter and root chemistry, favoring fungi adapted to those environments. These differences influence which plants can grow nearby and how quickly nutrients are recycled. Roots also compete. When the root systems of neighboring trees overlap, they compete for water and nutrients, just as their crowns compete for light. Some trees respond by increasing root density in contested areas, while others reduce growth and rely on stored reserves. This below-ground competition shapes forest composition over time, favoring species best suited to local conditions. As you move through the forest, every tree around you is connected to the soil through thousands of meters of roots and root hairs. These structures operate continuously, absorbing, exchanging, and redistributing resources. The stability of the forest above depends on this hidden network below, functioning quietly and persistently in darkness. Interwoven with the roots beneath your feet is a second network, finer and far more extensive. Fungal threads spread through the soil in all directions, forming associations with the roots of most trees you pass. In temperate forests, more than 90% of tree species form these partnerships, known as mycorrhizal relationships, because they provide clear advantages to both organisms. Fungal filaments, called hyphae, are much thinner than roots and can penetrate soil pores that roots cannot enter. This allows fungi to access water and minerals beyond the reach of tree roots alone. Phosphorus, nitrogen, and trace elements are absorbed by the fungi and transported back to the tree through specialized connection points at the root surface. In exchange, trees supply the fungi with sugars produced during photosynthesis. These sugars fuel fungal growth and metabolism. The exchange is continuous and regulated, increasing when nutrients are scarce and decreasing when they are abundant. This system functions as a biological marketplace, adjusting supply and demand according to environmental conditions. Some fungi form networks that connect multiple trees together. These networks can link trees of the same species or different species, young seedlings, and mature adults. Through these connections, resources can move from one tree to another. Studies have shown that carbon, nitrogen, and water can pass through fungal networks, supporting shaded or stressed trees and increasing overall forest resilience. Communication also occurs through these networks. When a tree is damaged by insects, chemical signals can travel through roots and fungi to neighboring trees. In response, nearby trees may increase the production of defensive compounds in their leaves, reducing damage before insects arrive. This form of signaling does not involve intention, but it represents a measurable transfer of information through chemical means. Fungal networks influence soil structure as well. As hyphae grow and decay, they bind soil particles together, improving stability and reducing erosion. They also contribute to the formation of humus, the dark organic component of soil that stores nutrients and water. Forest soils rich in fungal activity tend to retain moisture more effectively and support higher levels of plant growth. Different types of fungi dominate different forests. Deciduous forests often host ectomycorrhizal fungi, such as species of Boletus and Amanita, which form thick sheaths around roots. Grasslands and many shrubs rely more on arbuscular mycorrhizal fungi, which penetrate root cells directly. These differences affect how nutrients move through ecosystems and how plants respond to change. The fungal network is sensitive to disturbance. Soil compaction, pollution, and removal of trees can break connections and reduce efficiency. When forests are fragmented, these networks are disrupted, limiting nutrient flow and slowing recovery. Conversely, in intact forests, fungal systems contribute to long-term stability by buffering trees against drought, nutrient loss, and disease. As you continue through the forest, every step crosses this hidden web. While invisible, it is as critical to the forest as trunks and leaves. This underground network links individual organisms into a functioning whole, allowing resources and signals to move beneath the surface in steady, measurable ways. Water beneath the forest moves slowly and predictably, guided by gravity, soil structure, and the presence of roots and organic matter. When rain falls, only part of it reaches the ground directly. Leaves and branches intercept a significant portion, allowing water to drip gradually rather than strike the soil all at once. This delayed delivery reduces surface runoff and gives the ground time to absorb moisture. Once water reaches the forest floor, it enters soil that is highly porous. Years of root growth, fungal activity, and the movement of soil organisms have created a loose structure filled with air spaces. These spaces allow water to infiltrate rather than flow across the surface. In a healthy forest, infiltration rates can be several times higher than in compacted or agricultural soils. As water moves downward, it encounters layers with different properties. Organic, rich topsoil absorbs and holds moisture, while deeper mineral layers slow its movement further. Some water is retained in small pores by capillary forces, remaining available to roots for long periods after rainfall has stopped. Excess water continues downward, replenishing groundwater and feeding springs and streams. Tree roots influence this movement directly. Fine roots absorb water actively, while larger roots create channels that guide water deeper into the soil. When roots die and decay, they leave behind hollow pathways that continue to conduct water and air. These structures persist for years, shaping how moisture moves through the ground long after the root itself is gone. The presence of fungi increases water retention even further. Fungal networks hold water within their structures and distribute it across small distances in the soil. During dry periods, this stored moisture can be shared with roots, delaying the onset of water stress. This buffering effect allows forests to withstand periods of low rainfall more effectively than many other ecosystems. Water chemistry changes as it passes through forest soil. Dissolved minerals are absorbed by roots and microorganisms. Organic acids released by decomposing leaves and roots alter pH, increasing the availability of certain nutrients. By the time water reaches deeper layers or enters streams, it has been filtered and chemically modified by biological processes above it. This filtration has consequences beyond the forest. Streams originating in forested catchments tend to have lower sediment loads and more stable flow rates. Flood peaks are reduced because water is released gradually rather than all at once. During dry periods, groundwater fed by forest soils continues to supply streams, maintaining flow when surrounding landscapes dry out. Seasonal changes affect underground water movement. In spring, melting snow and increased rainfall recharge soil and groundwater. During summer, higher rates of transpiration draw water upward through trees and back into the atmosphere. In autumn and winter, reduced leaf activity allows soil moisture to rebuild. This annual cycle links forest water use directly to climate patterns. As you continue through the forest, the ground beneath you is quietly managing water on multiple timescales. Some moisture moves within hours, some over months, and some over years. This slow circulation stabilizes ecosystems, supports plant growth, and connects the forest to rivers, wetlands, and human water supplies, far beyond what can be seen from within the trees. As you move onward, attention returns to the living activity that fills the forest at a smaller scale. Much of the work that keeps this system functioning is carried out by organisms that are easy to overlook. These small lives process material, move energy, and regulate populations continuously, forming the base of the forest food web. Insects dominate this layer of activity. Beetles are among the most numerous and diverse, with species adapted to feeding on leaves, wood, fungi, and other insects. Bark beetles tunnel beneath tree bark, feeding on tissues that transport nutrients. In healthy forests, their populations are kept in check by predators such as woodpeckers and parasitic wasps. When trees are stressed by drought or disease, beetle populations can expand rapidly, altering forest structure. Ants are also highly influential. Colonies may contain tens or hundreds of thousands of individuals, each performing specialized roles. Ants transport seeds, particularly those with fatty attachments known as elaiosomes, moving them away from parent plants and reducing competition. They also aerate soil through tunneling, increasing water infiltration and nutrient mixing. Termites and wood-boring insects break down dead wood that would otherwise persist for decades. By fragmenting logs and branches, they increase the surface area available to fungi and bacteria. This accelerates decomposition and returns nutrients such as nitrogen and phosphorus to the soil more quickly than microbial processes alone. Spiders and predatory insects regulate populations from above. Web-building spiders intercept flying insects, while ground-dwelling species hunt through leaf litter. Predatory beetles and mantises reduce herbivore numbers, limiting damage to leaves and seedlings. These controls prevent any single species from overwhelming the system. At an even smaller scale, microorganisms drive chemical transformation. Bacteria in forest soils convert nitrogen into forms plants can use through processes such as nitrification and mineralization. Other bacteria fix atmospheric nitrogen, introducing new nutrients into the system. These processes operate continuously, even when plant growth slows. Many of these organisms respond rapidly to environmental change. After a tree falls, increased light and temperature trigger a surge in insect activity. Decomposers increase in number as fresh organic material becomes available. Predators follow, and birds adjust their feeding behavior to exploit the temporary abundance. These rapid responses allow forests to recycle disturbance into renewal rather than collapse. Small mammals interact closely with this system. Mice and voles consume seeds and insects, storing food and dispersing fungal spores through their droppings. Their digging and movement disturb soil and litter, influencing germination patterns. Predators such as owls, foxes, and stoats rely on these small mammals as primary food sources, linking lower levels of the food web to higher ones. As you continue through the forest, this constant activity continues beneath notice. Every gram of soil contains millions of organisms. Every fallen leaf enters a chain of interactions that redistributes its nutrients. The stability of the forest depends not on a few large species, but on the collective work of countless small ones, operating continuously and efficiently at scales just below immediate perception. Movement in the forest becomes easier to notice when attention focuses on insects in flight and motion. Unlike larger animals, insects respond quickly to temperature, light, and humidity, making them sensitive indicators of changing conditions. Their activity rises and falls throughout the day, following predictable patterns linked to energy use and survival. Flying insects such as flies, bees, and butterflies depend on external warmth to power their muscles. As sunlight increases, body temperature rises and flight becomes possible. In shaded forest interiors, this often limits activity to brief periods when light reaches the ground or when ambient temperatures increase. Open paths and clearings become corridors of movement, concentrating insects where conditions allow sustained flight. Bees and hoverflies move between flowering plants, transferring pollen as they feed on nectar. In temperate forests, many flowering plants bloom early in the year before the canopy fully develops. This timing allows pollinators access to light and flowers before shade intensifies. Plants such as bluebells and primroses complete much of their life cycle within a few weeks, relying on insects that emerge at the same time. Butterflies use the forest in specific ways. Species such as the speckled wood favor dappled light and fly along sunlit paths beneath the canopy. Males defend small territories, responding to moving shadows that might indicate rivals. Their movement patterns reflect fine-scale differences in light and temperature that are invisible without close attention. Beetles and ants move primarily across surfaces. Ground beetles patrol leaf litter at night, hunting other invertebrates. Their flattened bodies and long legs allow rapid movement through complex terrain. Ants follow chemical trails laid down by earlier workers, forming temporary transport routes between nests and food sources. These trails shift as resources change, constantly reorganizing insect traffic across the forest floor. Larval stages account for much of insect impact. Caterpillars consume leaves, sometimes in large numbers, converting plant tissue into animal biomass. This energy then moves upward through the food web when birds feed on larvae to raise their young. In years when caterpillar numbers are high, bird breeding success often increases measurably. Insects also move nutrients physically. Dung beetles roll and bury animal droppings, returning nitrogen and phosphorus to the soil. Carrion beetles locate dead animals quickly, breaking down tissue that would otherwise remain exposed. These activities reduce nutrient loss and limit the spread of disease. Sound provides another indication of insect movement. The low buzz of flies, the intermittent hum of bees, and the rhythmic chirring of crickets reflect wing speed and body size. These sounds vary with temperature, becoming faster and more frequent as conditions warm. At night, sound often replaces movement as the most noticeable sign of insect activity. Insects respond rapidly to disturbance. After storms or tree falls, populations often increase due to higher temperatures and fresh plant growth. This surge supports predators and accelerates nutrient cycling. In this way, insect movement acts as a linking mechanism, connecting plant growth, animal feeding, and decomposition into a continuous flow of energy. As you continue through the forest, this constant motion surrounds you. Insects move through air, across surfaces, and within soil, redistributing energy and matter at a pace far faster than trees or mammals. Their activity provides momentum to the system, ensuring that resources captured by plants do not remain static, but move steadily through the living network around you. As attention lifts again from the smaller scale, movement becomes more audible than visible. Birds occupy the upper layers of the forest, using height and mobility to exploit resources that are spread unevenly through space. Their presence is often detected first through sound, because dense vegetation limits long sight lines. Many forest birds rely on the canopy and understory for feeding. Great tits and blue tits move methodically along branches, inspecting leaves and bark for caterpillars, aphids, and spiders. Their short, frequent calls help maintain contact with flock members while foraging. This behavior increases feeding efficiency and reduces the risk of predation. Robins and blackbirds tend to operate lower down. Robins often perch close to the ground, watching for movement in leaf litter, where insects and earthworms become exposed. Blackbirds forage both on the ground and in shrubs, using their strong bills to probe soil and turn over leaves. Their feeding activity contributes to soil disturbance and seed movement at a small scale. Woodpeckers interact directly with tree trunks. Species such as the great spotted woodpecker locate insect larvae beneath bark by sound and vibration, then excavate using reinforced skulls and specialized tongue structures. The holes they create are later used by other birds, bats, and small mammals, extending the ecological impact of a single feeding event. Birds also play a role in seed dispersal. Jays collect acorns from oak trees, carrying them away to store for later consumption. Many of these cached seeds are never recovered, allowing new oak seedlings to establish far from the parent tree. This behavior contributes significantly to forest regeneration, especially after disturbance. Seasonal changes strongly influence bird activity. In spring, increased daylight and food availability trigger breeding. Insect populations rise, providing protein-rich food for chicks. Birds time nesting so that peak demand aligns with peak insect abundance. This synchronization is precise, and mismatches caused by climate shifts can reduce breeding success. Vertical movement is common. Some species feed near the ground, but nest higher up, reducing exposure to predators. Others adjust height throughout the day in response to temperature and light. During cooler periods, birds may forage in sunlit canopy gaps. During heat, they retreat to shaded understory where conditions are more stable. Birds also influence insect populations directly. A single pair of tits feeding nestlings can remove thousands of caterpillars in a breeding season. This predation reduces leaf damage and influences which tree species experience the greatest herbivore pressure. In this way, birds act as regulators, preventing insect populations from reaching levels that would destabilize growth. Sound patterns change with time of day. Early morning produces the highest vocal activity, known as the dawn chorus, when males advertise territory and condition. As daylight increases and feeding takes priority, vocalization declines. By midday, the forest is quieter, with sound returning again toward evening. As you continue through the forest, birds link the upper and lower layers of the system. They convert insect biomass into movement, sound, and dispersal, connecting canopy, trunk, and forest floor. Their presence reflects the availability of food, the structure of vegetation, and the stability of the environment, making them reliable indicators of forest health as you move steadily onward. Movement at ground level becomes more deliberate as attention shifts to larger animals active during daylight. Mammals in the forest rely on cover, memory, and repeated paths rather than speed alone. Their presence is often inferred through signs such as tracks, droppings, browsed vegetation, and disturbed soil rather than direct sight. Deer are among the most influential mammals in many temperate forests. Species such as roe deer and red deer feed on leaves, shoots, and bark, shaping the structure of understory vegetation. Their browsing pressure can limit the regeneration of trees like oak and beech, especially where predator numbers are low. Over time, high deer densities can reduce plant diversity by favoring species that are less palatable or better defended. Wild boar alter the forest in a different way. Using strong snouts, they root through soil and leaf litter in search of roots, tubers, insects, and fungi. This behavior disturbs the ground, breaking up compacted soil and mixing organic matter into deeper layers. While excessive rooting can damage seedlings, moderate levels increase soil aeration and create patches where new plants can establish. Small mammals operate at a finer scale, but in large numbers. Squirrels move through both canopy and understory, feeding on seeds such as acorns, hazelnuts, and pine cones. Like jays, they cache food in multiple locations, and unrecovered stores contribute to seed dispersal. Their selective feeding influences which tree species regenerate successfully. Mice and voles concentrate their activity near the forest floor. They consume seeds, fungi, insects, and green plant material, converting plant energy into animal biomass. Their populations fluctuate seasonally and from year to year, responding to food availability. In years with heavy seed production, known as mast years, small mammal numbers often increase sharply. These mammals play an important role in fungal dispersal. Many forest fungi produce underground fruiting bodies that rely on animals for spore distribution. When mammals consume these fungi, spores pass through the digestive system and are deposited elsewhere, often in nutrient-rich droppings. This process helps maintain fungal networks across the forest. Predation shapes mammal behavior. Foxes hunt rodents along forest edges and paths, using hearing to locate movement beneath leaf litter. Their presence influences where and when smaller mammals forage, reducing overuse of particular areas. This creates a shifting pattern of pressure that prevents resources from being exhausted in one place. Daily activity patterns reflect temperature and risk. Many mammals feed actively during early morning and late afternoon, avoiding midday heat and periods of high visibility. Shade and vegetation density provide cover from predators and reduce thermal stress. Trails formed by repeated movement become part of the forest structure, guiding future movement for both animals and people. Mammals also contribute to nutrient cycling. Droppings return nitrogen, phosphorus, and other elements to the soil in concentrated patches. These inputs stimulate plant growth locally and support insect communities that specialize in dung decomposition. Over time, this redistribution of nutrients influences vegetation patterns at a small scale. As you continue through the forest, these mammals operate largely out of sight, yet their influence is widespread. Through feeding, movement, and waste, they redistribute energy and nutrients, shape plant communities, and connect different parts of the forest into a functioning whole during the daylight hours. As daylight fades, a different set of mammals becomes active, adapted to move and feed under low light conditions. Night activity reduces competition with daytime species and lowers the risk of detection by predators. These animals rely more heavily on hearing, smell, and memory than on vision, navigating the forest using familiar routes and persistent cues. Bats are among the most effective nocturnal hunters. Species such as the common pipistrelle and the brown long-eared bat emerge shortly after sunset, flying along woodland edges and beneath the canopy. They use echolocation, emitting high-frequency sounds and interpreting returning echoes to locate insects with precision. A single bat can consume thousands of insects in one night, significantly reducing populations of moths, flies, and mosquitoes. Owls operate higher in the food web. Tawny owls occupy territories year-round, using silent flight to approach prey undetected. Their asymmetrical ear placement allows them to pinpoint sound with remarkable accuracy, locating rodents moving beneath leaf litter or snow. By controlling populations of mice and voles, owls help stabilize plant regeneration and limit excessive seed loss. Foxes increase their activity after dark, expanding their foraging range. They move along established paths, forest edges, and clearings, hunting small mammals, birds, and insects. Their diet is flexible, allowing them to respond quickly to changes in prey availability. This adaptability makes them resilient and influential within forest ecosystems. Badgers are strong diggers and primarily nocturnal. They forage for earthworms, insects, and plant material, using an acute sense of smell to locate food underground. Their repeated use of paths and latrines creates stable features within the forest, influencing movement patterns of other animals and contributing to nutrient redistribution. Small nocturnal rodents adjust their behavior to reduce predation risk. Many feed briefly and retreat to cover, spreading their activity across multiple locations rather than concentrating it in one place. This pattern reduces the impact of grazing or seed consumption on any single area, allowing vegetation to recover. Nighttime conditions alter insect behavior as well. Moths become more active, feeding on nectar and acting as pollinators for plants that flower at dusk or night. These interactions support plant reproduction outside daylight hours, extending the functional period of the forest ecosystem. Temperature and humidity often increase near the forest floor at night as transpiration slows and air movement decreases. These conditions favor amphibians such as frogs and newts, which emerge to feed on insects. Their activity links aquatic breeding sites with terrestrial feeding areas, moving nutrients between habitats. Sound becomes a primary signal in the dark. Rustling leaves, wing beats, and calls provide information about presence and movement. These sounds are absorbed and softened by vegetation, limiting how far they travel and creating a sense of closeness within the forest. As the night progresses, energy continues to move through the system. Insects are consumed, nutrients are redistributed, and population pressures are balanced. The forest does not rest after dark. It shifts into a different mode of operation, maintaining stability through organisms adapted to function efficiently when light is scarce. As the forest moves through a full day, patterns of activity shift in response to light, temperature, and energy demand. Morning brings the most rapid change. As sunlight begins to reach the canopy, air temperatures rise and photosynthesis increases. Leaves open small pores called stomata, allowing carbon dioxide to enter and water vapor to leave. This exchange drives growth, but also links forest activity directly to atmospheric conditions. During early hours, birds are at their most active. The increase in sound reflects both communication and feeding. Insects that have remained inactive overnight begin to move as temperatures rise, providing a reliable food source. This timing is efficient. Energy intake is highest when effort required to locate prey is lowest. Plants also benefit, as early insect feeding often limits later population growth. By late morning, light penetrates deeper into the forest. Sunflecks become more frequent on the forest floor, increasing photosynthetic activity in shade-adapted plants. Soil temperatures rise slightly, accelerating microbial processes. Bacteria and fungi increase the rate at which nutrients are converted into usable forms, making nitrogen and phosphorus more available to roots. As the day progresses into afternoon, conditions stabilize. Air movement increases slightly as temperature differences develop between shaded forest interior and open land nearby. This gentle circulation removes excess heat and moisture, preventing overheating and fungal disease on leaves. Many animals reduce movement during this period, conserving energy and avoiding thermal stress. In the warmest part of the day, transpiration peaks. Trees move large volumes of water from soil to atmosphere, cooling leaves and influencing local humidity. In dense forests, this process can lower air temperatures by several degrees compared to surrounding areas. This cooling effect is measurable and contributes to the role of forests in moderating regional climate. As afternoon light begins to weaken, activity resumes. Birds return to feeding and movement as temperatures fall. Mammals emerge from cover. Insects increase flight activity in response to more favorable conditions. The forest enters a second period of heightened interaction, similar to morning but shorter in duration. Evening brings changes in sound and chemistry. Photosynthesis slows as light levels drop, but respiration continues. Plants, animals, and microorganisms release carbon dioxide as they use stored energy. The balance between carbon uptake and release shifts, linking forest metabolism to the daily cycle of light and darkness. Temperature gradients reverse after sunset. The forest interior retains warmth longer than open land due to reduced heat loss. This thermal buffering supports nocturnal activity and limits frost formation near the ground. Moisture levels rise, benefiting fungi, amphibians, and soil organisms. Across weeks and months, these daily cycles accumulate into seasonal patterns. Growth accelerates in spring, peaks in summer, slows in autumn, and pauses during winter dormancy. Each phase reflects changes in light availability, temperature, and water supply. Trees store energy during favorable periods and draw on reserves when conditions become limiting. As you move through the forest, you are traveling within this continuous cycle. Every hour brings subtle change. Energy enters, moves, and is released according to predictable rhythms. The forest is not static at any moment, but it remains stable because these cycles repeat, linking time, biology, and physical processes into a system that persists across days, years, and centuries. As the season shifts toward autumn, the forest begins a controlled withdrawal of energy from its leaves. Deciduous trees such as oak, beech, and maple reduce chlorophyll production as daylight shortens and temperatures fall. Chlorophyll breaks down first, revealing pigments that were present but previously masked, including carotenoids and anthocyanins. These changes are chemical and measurable, reflecting a shift from growth to conservation. Before leaves are shed, trees reclaim valuable nutrients. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium are transported from leaves back into branches and trunks, where they are stored for reuse in the following spring. This recovery process increases efficiency. A tree that retrieves nutrients before leaf fall requires fewer resources from the soil when growth resumes. Leaf drop follows the formation of an abscission layer at the base of each leaf stem. Cells in this layer weaken and separate in response to hormonal changes, allowing leaves to detach with minimal damage to the tree. Wind and rain complete the process, transferring leaves from canopy to ground over a period of weeks rather than all at once. Once on the forest floor, leaves become raw material for decomposition. Their physical structure influences how quickly this occurs. Thin leaves with lower lignin content break down faster. Tougher leaves persist longer, forming a thicker litter layer. Moisture, temperature, and microbial activity control the rate of decay, with warm and wet conditions accelerating the process. Fungi are the primary agents of leaf decomposition. They colonize leaf surfaces quickly, extending filaments into tissue and releasing enzymes that break down complex compounds. Bacteria follow, processing simpler molecules released by fungal activity. Together, these organisms convert solid plant material into dissolved nutrients and carbon dioxide. Invertebrates increase the efficiency of this process. Woodlice, millipedes, and beetle larvae fragment leaves into smaller pieces, increasing surface area for microbial attack. Earthworms incorporate this material into soil, mixing organic matter with mineral particles. This mixing improves aggregation, water retention, and nutrient availability. Decomposition releases nutrients gradually, rather than all at once. Nitrogen becomes available through mineralization, while phosphorus is released from organic compounds and bound to soil particles. Calcium and magnesium leach into soil solution, influencing pH and root uptake. This slow release supports steady plant growth and reduces nutrient loss through leaching. Deadwood follows a similar path over a longer timescale. Fallen branches and trunks decompose over decades. Early stages are dominated by fungi that can break down lignin. Later stages involve insects and bacteria that consume softened material. As wood decays, it retains moisture and nutrients, creating habitat for seedlings and invertebrates. This process links decay directly to renewal. Nutrients released from fallen leaves and wood support the growth of roots, fungi, and microbes. Seedlings establish in decomposed material where moisture and nutrients are concentrated. What appears as loss at the surface becomes gain within the system. As you continue through the forest, fallen leaves underfoot represent stored energy returning to circulation. Each layer marks a previous season of growth, now being converted into future potential. Decay here is not a failure of structure. It is a regulated process that sustains productivity, stability, and long-term continuity within the forest ecosystem. Change in the forest is often driven by physical forces that arrive from outside the system. Wind, storms, and fire act as disturbances, but they are not random or purely destructive. Each follows physical rules and produces predictable ecological responses that shape forest structure over long periods. Wind is the most frequent of these forces. Trees experience constant mechanical stress as air moves across the canopy. To resist this, trees adjust growth patterns. Wood produced on the windward side of a trunk is often denser, increasing strength. Root systems spread wider rather than deeper, improving stability. These responses are gradual and measurable, reflecting years of exposure rather than single events. During storms, wind speed increases beyond what individual trees can tolerate. Tall trees with shallow roots, particularly in wet soils, are more likely to fall. Conifers with narrow crowns often resist wind better than broad-crowned deciduous trees, though frozen or saturated ground increases failure for all species. When trees fall, they create gaps that alter light, temperature, and moisture almost immediately. Storms also deliver large amounts of rain in short periods. Forest soils absorb much of this water, but intense rainfall can exceed infiltration capacity. In these cases, fallen leaves and roots slow surface flow, reducing erosion compared to open ground. Where trees are uprooted, exposed soil becomes vulnerable, but regrowth often begins quickly due to increased light and nutrient availability. Snow and ice add weight to branches and crowns. In heavy snow years, branches break or bend, reducing canopy density. Ice accumulation increases breakage, especially in species with brittle wood. These events prune trees unevenly, changing canopy shape and redistributing light without removing entire individuals. Fire operates differently, but is equally structured. In some forests, particularly those dominated by pine species, fire has occurred regularly for thousands of years. Low-intensity fires burn leaf litter and small plants without killing mature trees. Thick bark protects trunks, while heat releases seeds from cones in species adapted to fire-dependent regeneration. Fire alters nutrient availability rapidly. Combustion converts organic material into ash, releasing potassium, calcium, and phosphorus into forms immediately available to plants. Nitrogen is partially lost to the atmosphere, but surviving roots and seeds often respond quickly to the sudden increase in light and nutrients. The frequency and intensity of fire shape forest composition. Frequent low-intensity fires favor fire-tolerant species and maintain open understories. Long periods without fire allow fuel to accumulate, increasing the likelihood of severe burns that kill large numbers of trees. These patterns are well documented in fire-adapted ecosystems across the world. After disturbance, biological responses begin almost immediately. Insects colonize damaged wood. Fungi move into exposed tissue. Seedlings establish in newly available space. Birds exploit increased insect abundance. These responses convert physical disruption into biological opportunity. Wind, storms, and fire do not act as external threats to the forest. They are integrated forces that reset structure, redistribute resources, and create variation across the landscape. As you continue through the forest, uneven tree ages, fallen trunks, and patches of dense growth mark the history of these events, recorded not in memory, but in wood, soil, and living structure. As the forest ages, differences between old trees and young growth become increasingly clear. Age in trees is not simply a measure of time, but of accumulated structure and function. An old tree interacts with light, water, soil, and organisms in ways that a young tree cannot, even when they occupy the same space. Old trees are defined by size, internal complexity, and ecological role rather than by a specific number of years. An oak that is 200 years old contains a large volume of living and non-living tissue. The outer layers of wood conduct water and nutrients, while inner heartwood provides strength. Cavities form where branches have broken or decay has progressed, creating habitat for birds, bats, insects, and fungi. Growth rates change with age. Young trees prioritize height, investing energy in rapid vertical growth to reach light. Old trees grow more slowly, adding smaller increments of wood each year. This shift reflects changes in energy balance. Maintenance of existing tissue requires increasing resources, leaving less available for new growth. Old trees also store large quantities of carbon. Most carbon in a forest is held not in young saplings, but in mature and old individuals. Even when growth slows, old trees continue to absorb carbon through photosynthesis and add it to wood and roots. Their removal, therefore, has a disproportionate effect on carbon storage. Young growth responds quickly to changes in conditions. When light increases after a tree falls, suppressed seedlings accelerate growth. Species such as birch and poplar are often among the first to establish, using rapid growth and high light tolerance to colonize open space. Slower growing species such as beech and oak follow, gradually overtaking early colonizers as shade returns. This process creates a patchwork of ages across the forest. Some areas are dominated by young, fast-growing trees. Others contain a mixture of sizes and ages. This variation increases resilience. Different age classes respond differently to drought, disease, and disturbance, reducing the likelihood that a single event will affect the entire forest. Old trees influence soil conditions around them. Their large root systems draw water and nutrients from wide areas, concentrating organic matter near the base of the trunk. Leaf litter from old trees often differs in quantity and chemistry from that of younger trees, shaping microbial communities and nutrient cycling locally. Young trees interact differently with fungi and soil organisms. Their roots establish new partnerships, expanding underground networks. They are more sensitive to changes in moisture and nutrient availability, making them responsive indicators of environmental conditions. High mortality among seedlings is common, but those that survive often persist for decades. The coexistence of old and young trees creates vertical and horizontal complexity. Light penetrates unevenly. Wind patterns vary. Habitat diversity increases. This complexity supports a wider range of species than uniform stands of similar age. As you move through the forest, massive trunks and slender saplings exist side by side. One represents long-term stability and stored history. The other represents potential and rapid response. Together, they allow the forest to persist across centuries, adjusting continuously while maintaining overall structure and function. As trees age and eventually die, their presence does not end. Death in the forest is a transition rather than a removal, and its effects are measurable across time and space. Standing dead trees, known as snags, and fallen logs remain structurally and biologically active for decades. When a tree dies standing, its wood begins to dry and harden. This creates nesting and roosting opportunities for birds such as woodpeckers, nuthatches, and owls. Bats use cracks beneath loose bark as daytime shelters. Insects colonize dead wood in distinct stages, with different species specializing in fresh, dry, or heavily decayed material. This succession increases biodiversity by creating habitats that do not exist in living trees. Fallen trees interact directly with the forest floor. A trunk lying on the ground traps moisture, moderates temperature, and resists decay in its interior long after outer layers soften. These logs function as reservoirs of water and nutrients. In dry periods, seedlings growing on decaying wood experience less water stress than those rooted in surrounding soil. This process is known as nurse log formation. Seeds landing on decayed wood encounter reduced competition, stable moisture, and fewer soil pathogens. Species such as spruce, hemlock, and beech frequently establish on rotting logs, using them as elevated platforms that improve survival in early stages of growth. Decomposition of wood follows a long trajectory. Fungi capable of breaking down lignin initiate decay, followed by bacteria and invertebrates that consume softened material. As wood decomposes, it releases carbon slowly rather than rapidly, contributing to long-term carbon storage within forest soils. Large logs can retain carbon for many decades, even centuries. Dead wood also influences nutrient distribution. As rain passes through decaying material, it becomes enriched with dissolved minerals and organic compounds. This leachate enters the soil beneath, creating localized zones of higher fertility. These zones often support denser plant growth and increased microbial activity. Physical structure changes as decay progresses. Logs collapse, fragment, and eventually merge with the soil. Throughout this process, they continue to affect water movement, slowing runoff and increasing infiltration. In areas with steep slopes, fallen trees reduce erosion by acting as natural barriers that trap soil and debris. The removal of dead wood alters forest function significantly. Forests manage to eliminate fallen and standing dead trees show reduced biodiversity, faster nutrient loss, and lower moisture retention. In contrast, forests with abundant dead wood support more stable food webs and recover more quickly from disturbance. Death also creates openings in the canopy. When large trees fall, light reaches the ground and initiates a new cycle of growth. Seedlings that have waited in low light respond rapidly, while new seeds arrive carried by wind and animals. This link between death and regeneration maintains continuity across generations. As you continue through the forest, fallen trunks and standing remnants are not signs of decline. They are structural components with defined roles, storing carbon, regulating water, and supporting life. The forest persists not by avoiding death, but by integrating it into processes that sustain function, diversity, and long-term stability. As humans first began to move through forests, they did so as part of the existing system rather than above it. Archaeological evidence shows that early humans relied on forests for food, shelter, tools, and protection for hundreds of thousands of years. These environments provided predictable resources such as edible plants, game animals, fresh water, and materials for fire and construction. Stone tools found near forest edges indicate repeated use of the same areas over long periods. Forests offered wood for spears, digging sticks, and later for shelters and fires. Fire use altered forest dynamics locally by clearing undergrowth, improving visibility, and encouraging the growth of certain plants that responded well to disturbance. These changes were generally small in scale and temporary, allowing forests to recover quickly. Early hunters followed animal movement patterns shaped by forest structure. Large mammals moved along clearings, river corridors, and natural paths created by fallen trees. Humans learned these routes through observation and repetition. This knowledge reduced energy expenditure and increased hunting success, reinforcing close attention to forest behavior. gathering was equally important. Forests supplied fruits, nuts, seeds, roots, and fungi. Seasonal availability shaped movement and settlement patterns. In temperate forests, mast years when oak and beech produced abundant seeds created periods of high food availability for both humans and animals. These events were predictable enough to support repeated seasonal return. Shelter construction relied heavily on forest materials. Branches, bark, leaves, and later timber provided insulation and protection from weather. Forest cover moderated temperature and reduced wind exposure, making these environments favorable for extended occupation. Water sources within forests were often cleaner and more reliable due to filtration by soil and vegetation. Humans also interacted with forests through tools made from bone, antler, and plant fibers. These materials were processed using stone implements and fire, creating a feedback loop between forest resources and technological development. Over time, these interactions shaped both human culture and forest composition. Importantly, early human populations were relatively small and mobile. Their impact was dispersed across large areas, allowing forests to regenerate between periods of use. Fire use was controlled and localized. Hunting pressure fluctuated, but rarely exceeded the capacity of animal populations to recover. This balance persisted for long periods before larger-scale land modification began. As you move through the forest now, the traces of these early interactions are largely invisible, yet paths, clearings, and species distributions still reflect thousands of years of human presence. The forest you are in has not existed separately from humans. It has developed alongside them, shaped subtly by repeated use, observation, and adaptation over deep time. This relationship set the foundation for everything that followed, establishing forests as places of dependence, learning, and survival, long before they became sites of extraction or conservation. As human presence in forests became more regular, shelter shifted from temporary use to more deliberate construction. Forests offered materials that were flexible, abundant, and renewable, allowing people to adapt quickly to changing conditions. Wood, bark, leaves, and fibers could be combined in different ways to create structures suited to climate, season, and duration of stay. Branches and saplings formed the basic framework of early shelters. Flexible species such as hazel and willow could be bent and woven, while stronger woods like oak provided support. Bark from trees such as birch could be peeled in sheets and used as waterproof covering. Leaves, grasses, and moss were layered to trap air, increasing insulation and reducing heat loss. The effectiveness of forest shelter relied on understanding material properties. Dry wood burns efficiently and provides heat. Green wood resists combustion and can be used near fire without igniting. Bark sheds water, while leaf litter retains warmth. These characteristics were learned through repeated interaction and observation, turning the forest into a reliable source of building knowledge as well as materials. Forest cover itself functioned as shelter. Dense canopies reduced exposure to wind and moderated temperature extremes. In cold conditions, forests retained heat longer than open land. In warm conditions, shade lowered surface temperatures and reduced water loss. These effects are measurable and continue to be observed in modern climate studies. Shelter placement followed environmental cues. Elevated ground reduced flooding risk. Proximity to water ensured access without exposure to open terrain. South-facing slopes in temperate regions received more sunlight, improving warmth and comfort. These choices reflect an understanding of microclimates created by forest structure and topography. Fire altered shelter use further. Controlled fires provided warmth, protection from predators, and a means to process food and materials. Smoke deterred insects and preserved meat. The placement of fire within or near shelters required careful management of airflow and fuel, reinforcing awareness of wind direction and canopy density. Over time, repeated use of shelter sites influenced local vegetation. Trampled ground reduced plant growth. Collected wood altered the distribution of dead material. Small clearings formed where light increased and new plants established. These changes were local and often temporary, but they demonstrate how shelter use left physical traces within the forest. Shelters also shaped social behavior. Enclosed spaces allowed longer stays, storage of food, and protection for young and injured individuals. This stability supported the development of shared knowledge about forest resources, seasonal cycles, and animal behavior. Forest shelter was not just protection from weather, but a framework for cooperation and learning. As you move through the forest now, the materials that once formed shelter remain present. The same branches, bark, and leaves continue to offer insulation, structure, and protection. While the shelters themselves have long since returned to soil, the relationship between forest materials and human survival persists, rooted in physical properties that remain unchanged. As human relationships with forests deepened, they were shaped not only by usefulness, but also by uncertainty. Forests limited visibility, absorbed sound, and concealed movement. These conditions created risk, especially before artificial light and mapped terrain. The same structure that offered shelter also reduced predictability, shaping how forests were perceived and navigated. Dense vegetation restricts lines of sight. In many temperate forests, visibility can be reduced to a few tens of meters or less. This makes early detection of animals or other humans difficult. Predators benefit from this concealment, while prey species rely on hearing and smell rather than vision. Humans moving through such environments experience similar constraints, increasing caution and altering behavior. Sound behaves differently in forests than in open land. Leaves, trunks, and uneven ground scatter and absorb noise, making direction and distance harder to judge. A single movement can appear closer or farther than it is. This acoustic uncertainty heightens alertness and slows travel, particularly in low light or unfamiliar terrain. Large predators historically occupied many forested regions. Wolves, bears, and big cats used cover to approach prey. Archaeological and historical evidence shows that humans adapted by traveling in groups, using fire, and selecting routes that reduced exposure. Fear was not abstract. It was a response to measurable risk shaped by ecology and animal behavior. Forests also contained environmental hazards. Uneven ground increased the risk of injury. Fallen logs, hidden roots, and steep slopes slowed movement and increased energy expenditure. Seasonal changes added further challenges. In winter, snow concealed obstacles. In summer, dense undergrowth restricted movement and visibility even further. Disease risk influenced perception as well. Forests host insects capable of transmitting pathogens, including ticks and mosquitoes. Standing water and shaded conditions support their life cycles. While early humans did not understand disease transmission scientifically, patterns of illness associated with certain environments influenced avoidance and caution. Navigation through forests required memory rather than landmarks. Without clear horizons or distant reference points, movement depended on recognizing subtle features such as distinctive trees, watercourses, or changes in slope. Getting lost carried serious consequences, especially when food, shelter, and daylight were limited. These risks shaped cultural responses. Stories, warnings, and taboos often centered on forests as places of danger. Such narratives reinforced caution and encoded practical knowledge about where and when to travel. Fear functioned as information, guiding behavior in environments where mistakes were costly. Despite this, forests were never avoided entirely. Their resources were essential. Instead, humans developed strategies to manage risk. Paths were reused, clearings were maintained. Fire was used to create open space and improve visibility. Over time, familiarity reduced danger, but uncertainty never disappeared completely. As you move through the forest now, the structure that once generated fear remains. Limited sightlines, softened sound, and layered vegetation still shape perception. What has changed is the context. Modern understanding and technology reduce risk, but the physical properties that influenced early human behavior persist, embedded in the way forests organize space, sound, and movement. As human populations increased and technology advanced, forests began to be used more intensively as sources of material and energy. Wood became a primary resource for heating, construction, tools, and later, for industry. This shift changed the scale and persistence of human impact, moving from local and temporary use toward long-term alteration of forest structure. Timber harvesting focused first on easily accessible trees. Straight trunks from oak, pine, and spruce were selected for building because of their strength and predictable properties. Oak resisted rot and was used for frames and ships. Pine and spruce grew faster and were lighter, making them suitable for beams, planks, and fuel. Selective removal altered species composition by favoring trees that were less desirable or harder to access. Firewood collection affected forests differently from timber extraction. Removing dead wood and smaller trees reduced fuel loads, but also removed habitat for insects, fungi, and birds. In heavily used areas, repeated removal of woody material reduced soil nutrients over time because carbon and minerals were taken out of the system rather than recycled through decay. Charcoal production intensified this effect. Wood was burned slowly under controlled conditions to produce a concentrated fuel. This process required large volumes of timber and often led to repeated cutting of the same areas. Coppicing systems developed in response, allowing trees such as hazel and oak to regrow from cut stumps. These systems maintained a supply of wood while preventing complete forest loss, but they simplified structure and reduced age diversity. Forests were also sources of non-timber products. Bark provided tannins for leather processing. Resin and pitch were collected from conifers for waterproofing and adhesives. Leaves and litter were gathered for animal bedding, later spread on fields as fertilizer. Each of these uses removed material that would otherwise have contributed to soil formation and nutrient cycling. As use intensified, transport became a limiting factor. Forests near rivers were harvested first because timber could be floated downstream. This led to uneven patterns of depletion, with remote forests remaining intact longer. Historical records show that many major rivers were once lined with cleared or heavily managed forest corridors. The cumulative effects of extraction altered forest function. Reduced canopy cover increased temperature and evaporation. Soil erosion increased where roots were removed. Wildlife populations shifted as habitat changed. Some species declined, while others adapted to open or disturbed conditions. At the same time, human dependence on forests deepened. Wood remained essential, even as other materials emerged. Forests supplied not only raw material, but also regulated water flow, reduced flooding, and protected soils needed for agriculture. Where forests were removed entirely, these services were lost, often with immediate consequences. As you move through the forest now, managed and unmanaged areas can still be distinguished. Even aged stands, straight rows of trees, and uniform species composition reflect past resource use. In contrast, uneven structure and mixed species indicate areas where extraction was limited or absent. Forests as resources represent a turning point in the relationship between humans and trees. Use shifted from participation within a system to sustained removal from it. This change set the stage for modern challenges in forest management, conservation, and recovery, which emerge from the long history of forests being treated as both living systems and supplies of material. As the focus shifts to the present, forests take on a role that extends far beyond their boundaries. Their influence on climate operates through measurable physical and biological processes that affect air composition, temperature, and water movement at local, regional, and global scales. Forests interact with the atmosphere primarily through photosynthesis and respiration. During photosynthesis, trees absorb carbon dioxide and convert it into sugars, building wood, leaves, and roots. Roughly half of the dry mass of wood is carbon. This means that when forests grow, carbon is removed from the atmosphere and stored in living tissue and soil. Globally, forests contain more carbon than all proven fossil fuel reserves combined, distributed across trunks, roots, leaf litter, and organic soil layers. This storage is not static. Forests continuously exchange carbon with the atmosphere. During daylight, carbon uptake exceeds release. At night, respiration dominates. Over a year, intact forests tend to absorb more carbon than they emit, acting as net carbon sinks. The strength of this effect depends on forest age, species composition, climate, and disturbance history. Young, rapidly growing forests absorb carbon quickly, while old forests store large amounts over long periods. Forests also influence climate through water movement. Transpiration releases vast quantities of water vapor into the atmosphere. In large forested regions, this moisture contributes to cloud formation and rainfall. In tropical forests, recycled moisture can account for a significant portion of regional precipitation. Even in temperate forests, transpiration affects humidity and temperature, reducing heat extremes. Surface properties matter as well. Forests absorb more sunlight than open land because their dark surfaces have low reflectivity. At the same time, evaporative cooling from transpiration offsets heat absorption, often resulting in cooler local temperatures compared to deforested areas. This balance varies by region. In snowy environments, forests reduce reflectivity and can increase warming, while in warmer regions, cooling effects dominate. Forests regulate air movement. Dense vegetation increases surface roughness, slowing wind speeds near the ground. This reduces heat loss, limits soil drying, and stabilizes local climates. Wind moderation also influences how pollutants and heat are distributed through the lower atmosphere. Soil plays a critical role in climate interaction. Forest soils store large amounts of organic carbon, especially in cool and moist regions. When forests are disturbed or cleared, this carbon can be released through decomposition and erosion. Maintaining soil integrity is therefore as important as preserving trees themselves. Climate change is already altering forest behavior. Rising temperatures affect growth rates, water use, and species distribution. In some regions, longer growing seasons increase carbon uptake. In others, drought stress reduces growth and increases mortality. Heat and water stress weaken trees, making them more vulnerable to insects and disease, which can rapidly reverse carbon storage gains. Fire regimes are changing as well. Warmer temperatures and altered rainfall increase the frequency and intensity of fires in many regions. When fires burn large areas, carbon stored over decades is released in days. Recovery can take many years, and repeated fires can prevent forests from re-establishing. As you move through the forest now, these global processes are expressed locally. Leaf size, growth rate, and water use reflect climatic conditions. Species better adapted to warmth or drought may become more common. The forest is responding continuously to atmospheric change, adjusting structure and function as conditions shift. Forests and climate are tightly linked systems. Changes in one produce feedbacks in the other. The stability of climate depends in part on the continued ability of forests to store carbon, regulate water, and moderate temperature. In turn, the future structure of forests depends on how climate continues to change in the decades ahead. As human activity has expanded, forests have increasingly been divided into smaller and more isolated areas. This process, known as fragmentation, changes forest function even when trees remain standing. Roads, fields, cities, and infrastructure break continuous forest into patches, altering conditions along their edges and limiting movement within. Edges behave differently from forest interiors. Increased sunlight, wind, and temperature fluctuations penetrate tens to hundreds of meters into a forest from an exposed boundary. Trees near edges experience higher stress and greater water loss. Species adapted to stable interior conditions decline, while those tolerant of disturbance become more common. This shift changes plant composition and reduces habitat for specialized organisms. Fragmentation limits movement of animals and plants. Many species require large, continuous territories to maintain viable populations. When forests are broken into small patches, animals may be unable to find mates, food, or seasonal resources. Genetic exchange between populations decreases, increasing vulnerability to disease and environmental change. Birds that nest in forest interiors are particularly affected. Increased edge exposure allows predators such as crows and foxes easier access to nests. Brood parasitism by species adapted to open areas increases. Over time, breeding success declines even when trees appear intact. Plant dispersal is also constrained. Seeds carried by wind or animals may not cross open land easily. Pollinators may avoid exposed areas, reducing reproduction in isolated patches. This limits regeneration and slows recovery after disturbance. Fragmentation affects microclimate at the landscape scale. Reduced canopy cover increases local temperatures and evaporation. Water runoff accelerates, increasing erosion and flooding risk downstream. Soil dries more quickly, stressing roots and microorganisms. Loss of forest area compounds these effects. When forests are cleared, carbon stored in wood and soil is released. Nutrient cycles are disrupted. Species dependent on forest conditions disappear or retreat to remaining patches. These changes are often rapid and difficult to reverse. Recovery becomes harder as fragmentation increases. Isolated patches lack seed sources and animal dispersers. Fungal networks are disrupted. Young forests struggle to establish the complexity seen in long intact systems. Despite this, forests retain a strong capacity for recovery when conditions allow. Given time, protection, and connectivity, many forest functions can return. Regrowth begins with pioneer species, followed by gradual increases in structural complexity and biodiversity. As you move through the forest now, differences between continuous and fragmented areas are visible in tree age, species mix, and undergrowth density. These patterns reflect not just what remains, but what has been lost and separated. Protection and recovery focus on maintaining continuity and restoring connection. Preserving large forest areas reduces edge effects and supports stable interior conditions. Establishing corridors between patches allows animals, seeds, and genes to move across landscapes. Active restoration accelerates recovery where natural processes are slow. Planting native species, reducing grazing pressure, and protecting young growth from disturbance help rebuild structure. Allowing dead wood to accumulate restores habitat and nutrient cycling. Fire and water management also play roles. Restoring natural fire regimes where appropriate reduces severe burns. Protecting soil and water flow supports long-term resilience. Forests respond best when allowed to operate as systems rather than plantations. Mixed species, uneven ages, and natural disturbance patterns increase resistance to drought, disease, and climate stress. These qualities develop over time and cannot be rushed. Globally, forest recovery contributes to climate stability, biodiversity conservation, and water security. Reforestation and afforestation increase carbon storage, but long-term benefits depend on protecting soils and allowing forests to mature. As you continue through the forest, protection and recovery are not abstract goals. They are processes already underway wherever forests are allowed to grow, connect, and regenerate. The future condition of forests depends on choices made now about land use, management, and time. What the forest offers is not only material or climate regulation, but information. Its structure shows how living systems persist through balance, feedback, and adaptation. By observing how forests grow, respond, and recover, patterns emerge that apply far beyond trees and soil. As you walk onward, the forest remains active around you. Energy continues to move through leaves, roots, soil, and air. Change continues, but so does continuity. The forest does not exist as a finished state. It exists as an ongoing process, shaped by physics, biology, and time. When you eventually leave the trees behind, the system you have been moving through does not stop. Forests continue to grow, recycle, store, and regulate, whether observed or not. Their presence supports life at scales that extend far beyond the path you have followed. The forest remains where it has always been, operating quietly, shaping climate, water, and living networks. What changes is awareness. Having moved through its structure and processes, the forest is no longer just a place, but a system understood through movement, observation, and time. As you move toward the edge of the forest, the structure around you begins to open gradually rather than ending abruptly. Tree spacing increases, Light becomes more consistent, and undergrowth shifts in composition. These changes are not sudden. They reflect a transition zone where forest conditions blend into surrounding land, shaped by gradients of light, moisture, and temperature. At this boundary, processes you have passed through continue without interruption. Roots extend beyond the visible line of trees. Fungal networks persist in soil that no longer supports a closed canopy. Seeds disperse outward, carried by wind, birds, and mammals, probing new ground for suitable conditions. The forest does not stop at its visible edge. Its influence extends beyond it. The air you breathe here has been modified by what lies behind you. Carbon dioxide concentrations are lower, humidity is higher, and temperature variation is reduced compared to open land. Water moving away from the forest carries fewer sediments and more stable chemistry. These effects travel downstream, affecting rivers, wetlands, agriculture, and cities far from where the trees stand. The forest you have moved through is not a fixed entity. It is the product of continuous exchange between sunlight, water, soil, organisms, and time. Every trunk, root, leaf, and organism represents an ongoing calculation shaped by physical limits and biological opportunity. Nothing here exists in isolation. Each process depends on another. Understanding this system does not require constant attention. It emerges through observation of patterns. Growth follows light. Water follows structure. Energy moves through predictable pathways. Disturbance creates opportunity. Recovery follows where conditions allow. These principles are consistent across forests worldwide, despite differences in species and climate. As you step farther from the trees, the sounds soften and space feels less enclosed. Yet the forest continues to operate behind you, cycling nutrients, storing carbon, moderating climate, and supporting life. Its work does not depend on presence or recognition. It proceeds regardless. What remains is a clearer sense of scale. Forests occupy a large portion of the planet, not by chance, but because their structure efficiently captures energy and stabilizes environments. Their persistence across hundreds of millions of years reflects systems that function within limits, rather than against them. The forest you have traveled through is one example among many, but the processes you have encountered apply broadly. Wherever trees grow together and interact with soil, water, and organisms, similar patterns emerge. These systems are resilient when allowed continuity, complexity, and time. As you leave this space, the forest does not recede into distance. It remains active, shaping conditions that support life well beyond its boundaries. What has changed is perspective. Having moved through its layers and processes, the forest becomes less a background and more a functioning system that continues, quietly and continuously, long after the path has ended. As the distance between you and the forest increases, its influence remains measurable rather than symbolic. Air that has passed through trees carries different moisture content and particulate levels than air that has not. Water leaving forested ground follows slower, filtered pathways. Carbon fixed in wood and soil remains stored on timescales far longer than human attention usually considers. These effects persist whether the forest is noticed or not. What the forest demonstrates most clearly is how stability emerges from interaction rather than control. No single organism regulates temperature, water, or nutrients. These outcomes arise from millions of small processes operating together. Leaves intercept light, roots modify soil, fungi redistribute nutrients, animals move energy through food webs, physical laws govern flow, pressure, and heat. The system holds because feedbacks limit extremes. Efficiency in the forest does not mean speed. Growth is constrained by light, water, and nutrient availability. When resources are abundant, expansion accelerates. When they are limited, activity slows. This restraint prevents collapse. Forests persist because they do not exceed the capacity of their supporting systems for long periods. Diversity plays a measurable role in this persistence. Different species respond differently to drought, cold, heat, and disturbance. When one declines, others compensate. This reduces volatility at the system level, even as individual components change. Uniform systems lack this buffering capacity and fail more abruptly when conditions shift. Time operates differently here. Processes that appear slow accumulate impact. A few millimeters of growth each year produces massive trunks over centuries. Thin layers of leaf litter build deep soils. Small changes in water flow shape entire catchments. Forests demonstrate how long-term outcomes emerge from repeated, constrained actions rather than dramatic events. Leaving the forest does not mean leaving its effects behind. Many of the conditions that support human life are shaped upstream by forest processes. Drinking water quality, flood frequency, temperature moderation, and atmospheric composition are all influenced by whether forests remain intact and connected. These relationships are empirical and quantifiable. The forest does not function as a backdrop. It functions as infrastructure built from living components. When this infrastructure is degraded, consequences follow predictably. When it is protected and allowed to mature, benefits accumulate gradually but reliably. As you move fully away from the trees, the system continues without interruption. Photosynthesis proceeds. Water moves through soil. Carbon is stored and released. Animals feed and reproduce. The forest remains engaged in processes that began long before and will continue long after individual movement through it ends. What remains is an understanding grounded in observation rather than abstraction. Forests endure not because they are untouched, but because their internal processes align with physical limits. Their survival over geological time reflects systems that adapt without exceeding capacity. The path ends, but the system does not. The forest continues to operate, quietly and persistently, shaping conditions across scales that extend far beyond its visible edge. As the forest recedes fully from view, its processes remain active and unchanged. Trees continue to exchange gases with the atmosphere. Soil organisms continue to convert organic matter into usable nutrients. Water continues to move slowly through root channels and porous ground. None of these processes require observation to persist. What has shifted is orientation. Having moved through the forest layer by layer, the system becomes easier to recognize elsewhere. Managed woodlands, city parks, river corridors, and even isolated stands of trees operate according to the same principles, though at smaller scales. Where trees grow together and interact with soil and water, similar feedbacks emerge. The forest does not offer a single lesson. It demonstrates constraints. Growth is limited by light and water. Stability depends on diversity and connection. Recovery follows disturbance only when underlying structure remains intact. These patterns repeat across ecosystems because they are shaped by physical limits rather than preference. Forests have persisted through major changes in climate, atmosphere, and geography. Their continued presence reflects systems that adjust incrementally rather than collapse suddenly. When forests fail, the causes are measurable. Loss of continuity, excessive removal of material, disruption of soil, and rapid shifts in temperature or moisture exceed adaptive capacity. Protection does not require perfection. Forests do not need to remain unchanged to function. They require time, space, and the ability to maintain internal connections. When these conditions are present, forests reorganize and persist. When they are removed, recovery slows or stops. The system you have moved through is still operating now, independent of attention. Energy continues to enter through sunlight. Matter continues to cycle. Change continues at multiple speeds, from seconds to centuries. The forest remains active because it is structured to do so. What remains at the end is not an image, but a framework. Forests are not defined by appearance alone, but by interaction. They are systems built from repeated exchanges between living organisms and physical forces. Their influence extends far beyond their boundaries, shaping conditions that support life at many scales. The forest does not conclude. It continues, operating within limits that allow persistence rather than excess. Having moved through its structure and processes, it becomes possible to recognize those same dynamics wherever living systems organize themselves over time. The forest remains where it has always been, not as a static place, but as an ongoing process, continuing quietly beyond the end of the path. As the space between you and the forest increases, nothing within the system changes its pace or direction. Photosynthesis continues wherever light reaches leaves. Roots continue to absorb water and minerals. Fungi continue to extend and retract through soil. These processes are not dependent on presence or movement. They proceed according to physical and biological limits that remain constant. What becomes clearer with distance is scale. Forests influence conditions far beyond their visible boundaries because their processes are cumulative. Millions of leaves exchanging gases alter atmospheric composition. Vast root systems regulate how water enters rivers and aquifers. Thick soils store carbon and nutrients that would otherwise be lost. These effects emerge from repetition rather than intensity. Forests persist because they distribute risk. Energy is captured in many places, stored in many forms, and released gradually. Disturbance affects parts rather than wholes when connectivity and diversity are maintained. This distribution prevents sudden failure and allows adjustment over time. Where forests are reduced to fragments, these advantages weaken. Where they remain connected, even imperfectly, function continues. Recovery follows when constraints are respected. This is observable across regions and time periods, independent of species or climate. The forest does not require interpretation to operate. It requires continuity. When trees grow together, interact with soil and water, and cycle material internally, the system remains stable within changing conditions. This stability is dynamic rather than fixed, maintained through constant adjustment. As the path ends, the processes you have moved through remain active elsewhere. In distant catchments, in unmanaged stands, in recovering landscapes, the same interactions continue. Forests do not end where attention ends. They operate across scales that extend well beyond individual movement. What remains is not an instruction or a conclusion, but an understanding shaped by observation. Forests function because they align growth with limits, distribute resources, and allow time for adjustment. These properties explain their persistence across hundreds of millions of years. The forest continues, not as an image held in memory, but as a system in motion. Energy enters, matter cycles, structure adapts. Long after movement has stopped, the processes remain, steady and uninterrupted, shaping the conditions that support life beyond the trees themselves. Thank you for listening to the Sleepy Mind channel. I hope you have enjoyed spending time moving through the forest.